G'day, Pat the Backyard Builder here. Well, we're on to part two of our shed siding project. We've got the trim on the doors now, and the next step we need to do is to start prepping for the siding. We're going to put the J trim on for the soffits and fascia. We need to get the J trim on first before you actually do the siding, because the siding has to run up to the J trim, so we need to have that in place first, and then once that's in place, then we can carry on. So we're just going to get our J trim here. Now we're going to start at the front here, and the first thing we need to do, I've got a compound bend that I need to do. We're going to start at the peak here. We're going to come down to this corner, and we're going to come down to this corner, and we're going to come out to this projection here. So that's where we're going to start off with that piece. Now I've already got my measurements, and then we'll get those on. So anyways, to get these measurements, what we're going to do, we're just going to take our tape measure, hook it up inside on top there, and we're going to come down to this corner here. Now because the J trim is 3/8 of an inch wide, we need to account for that when we actually do our measurement. So we're 51 inches to the peak there, and from this point here down to the bottom of here is 5 1/4 inches, and the projection out is 6 inches. So double check all that, and we're just going to go do our cutting now. Okay, so like I said, our first measurement was 51 inches. We're just going to come along here. We're going to mark that. Then we do another 5 1/4 inches. We're going to mark that. Brings us to 56 1/4. And then we need another 6 inches on top of that, which brings us to 62 1/4 for a grand total. Now you can either eyeball it, or you can use a square for this. Just mark, double check your marks there. Where'd the other one go? There it is. And I think that should have one more mark. Oh, it's 51. Oh, there it is. Kind of hard to see gray pencil lead on slate gray trim here. So, anyways, you can either eyeball it. I usually just eyeball it and just cut it off accordingly, or you can use a square. But just take your snips and cut in, come in directly under it. Cut the other side. Now this stuff is really easy to break. You just couple of good little bends and it's off, and that's all you need for that. Now it's important when you do your marks that you actually account for the fact that your J trim is going to be upside down, like so, on the wall or on the roof, whatever. And so you need to do your marks upside down, so that you get your cuts in the right place. So anyways, it appears I went and put them on the wrong end here, so we will just go ahead and mark that off again. 51, and 56 1/4 now. There. Because you have to be backwards, because when you flip it upside down on the shed there, you need your bends to be at the right end of the piece here. Okay, so now what we're going to do here, we're going to do two bends. We need to do a bend where it's a 90-degree bend this way, and then we need to do a 45-degree angle where it bends up this way here. So what we're going to do, we'll do our 90-degree first, and that's just a simple matter. I'll zoom in so you can see it here closer here. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is the 90-degree bend, and that's just a simple matter of coming in and cutting straight in and cutting the front and the back, but don't do the spine. Okay, now we're going to take our square here, we're going to mark off 45. We're going to take our snips, and we're just simply going to come in and cut that off like so. Now it's handy if you have one of these little sewing machine screwdrivers or something like that, or a nail or whatever, because what happens when you cut, you crimp this here, so you want to open that back up again. There we go. Just get that right back under there, because what you're going to do, you want that nice and open, because what you're going to do next is you're going to take this, you're going to bend that, and you want that to tuck underneath there. There we go, just like that. And that just folds in and catches there, and you got a nice 90-degree corner now. So now the next thing you want to do, we're going to take that one here, and we're going to cut like so. Now we're not going to do, we're only going to cut the face here for now. We're not going to cut the back, and I'll show you why here. Okay, so we need 5 1/4, and double check my length from this end here. Okay, so what we need to do here now is we need to take 1/8 of an inch off on each side of our cut here, and again just grab those, bend them like so, and then what we want to do, this time we're going to cut the spine. Okay, and we're just going to go like so. Now what that enables us to do now is bend, do our bend like so. And now that should just all fit into the spot that we have on our shed there. So let's go back to our shed. Okay, now if we've measured this correctly, this should just fit nicely in there, and just tucks all into these corners, runs right along the edge. Should be flush with the bottom here, so that when we put our soffit across, it just sits right here. The soffit goes into the slot and then kicks up against the bottom of the fascia board here. Okay, so I have noticed we've got one little problem. When we put the J-trim in place, we've got an issue here where there's a little gap in here between the capping and the J-trim where there's nothing on the building. Now obviously that's going to be much too small to try and get any siding in there, obviously. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a piece of the J-trim and we're going to loosen this capping off, and we're going to slide the J-trim, we're going to flatten it out a bit and slide it under the capping here. So it just kind of, we're going to change it in kind of like an L shape, and we'll use the seamer to do that. We'll just and then we'll just tuck it under this piece here, and it'll be run under this J trim as well. So this area will be the same color gray as the rest of the metal, and we won't have to worry about siding that. Okay, so to make our L strip, what we're going to do is we're just simply going to take a piece of the J, and we're going to cut the front off of it, and we're just going to tuck that up in behind. I do need two pieces here, so we're just going to cut two pieces like so. Bend. There we go. Done with that. There we go. Now just there we go. Just gonna go like so. Now we're gonna get the offset one. The offset should do this job a little easier. If you have to, you can bend that out a bit. Which is going to be easier. There we go. Don't have to have a particularly clean edge on this, because this is going to tuck up in behind on the on where we're covering things here. So okay, it's handy to have a couple of different snips around, because sometimes the big scissors don't always fit in well. So, but once you've got this cut here, you can just clean up the edge here a bit here nicely. Now, one thing I will mention here is with these little cuttings here, you're going to want to keep track of them and keep them in a container or something, because you sure don't want these little things getting into your lawn, because they can really hurt if you step on them later. So just keep your workspace clean. You don't want to be having to take one of the kids to the hospital or something like that, because silly little mistake around the yard like that. We'll just clean this up. There we go. Not that big of a deal, because this is actually going to hide under. We're going to put the capping over it like this, and this here part of the strip is what we're going to see. Okay, now I had to make a little cut and take a seamer and just flatten that out. That's just so I can get the hook around this piece right here. Basically what we're going to do now, we're going to lift this up, and we're just going to simply slide this under this ridge right here. Oh, we can get the hook. Come on. There we go. And there we go. That's all we need to do. And now this place here is covered with tin. It's not going to get water in there, and it's going to match the rest of the siding and trim. So, and just take our drill and we can put our screws back in now. So with the trims in place here, we can get out our soffit nailer, and we can just staple everything into place permanently now. Get in there. Okay. Now, the difference between a soffit nailer and a regular stapler is the soffit nailer has a really long nose on it. And that's so you can get right into the soffit, just like so, and put your staples in there. There we go. Now one little thing we're going to have to do here, but I don't do until we actually get up there. So I'm going to have to trim this corner here so that I can stick this piece in there. So I'll just mark that off now and we can do that. Okay, now to work with this top corner here, what you're going to do is you're 3/8 of an inch wide here. So what you're going to do, you're just simply going to take your snips and you're going to cut in the one side 3/8 of an inch and just simply flatten that down. And then you're going to take your other end, and what you're going to do with this is you're going to take this and you're going to cut in this corner here 3/8 of an inch. And then with that corner in there, you're just simply going to flatten that down. A seamer works handy, or you can do it with your finger. Just bend that, and you're just going to simply hook that in there. Okay? And then you can staple that into place now. Okay, so now the next part we need to cut is our 45-degree cut, that angle that's on the face. But what we're going to do, okay, we're not going to actually cut the face. What we're going to do is we're going to roll it over. We're simply going to cut the back, and you can give yourself a little bit of room to work with here. Just kind of cut that out into a V-notch, and then you're going to go around and you're going to cut the spine of this, okay? And then what we're going to do is this bends over on the face like so. Helps if you just take a seamer and just pinch that. Okay, so what we do here, we just cut a V-notch here, and then we cut the spine, and then we're right on our line here. Then we can take a seamer, just give that a little bit of a pinch right there, and then we just bend it like so, and that's how you get a nice inside 45. So anyways, once you've got all your J-trim around your shed, the next thing you need to do is mark out all your soffits, and then once you get your soffits out, you can put your fascia. Basically, you generally build your overhang so that your soffits are all the same height, or same width all the way around. So interesting, trying to see a dark mark on a dark panel in the shades. There we go. just in this case my overhang is 6 inches, so I'm just cutting a bunch of 6-inch pieces of soffit, and then we'll assemble them as we go. Now with a shed, there's usually not a whole lot of soffit to cut, so I usually just do it all by hand. Some people, what they'll do is they'll take a blade and put it on their skill saw, but they'll put it backward, and they'll use that to cut the metal with. Personally, I find that obnoxiously noisy, and I prefer the sweet sounds of silence, so yeah, it's just a personal preference. It's however you like to work. I suppose it is a little faster with the skill saw because they can cut 10 pieces at once. But I just do this kind of as a hobby because I like to do it, so I'm not out to break any speed records with what I do. So it is, once you have all your soffits cut, it's just a simple matter of slipping it into the slot, lining it up here, and then taking your staple gun and just going into every one of those little cracks there. And I just got to do one little tiny strip right at the end here and we're done. So next step after you get the soffits on, then it's the fascia. Now you'll notice one end of the soffit has a fold and the other end is a flat piece. So just tuck the flat piece into the folded end, and then the last little bit, just cut yourself a little piece and just slide it right into place, and that's all there is to that. One little staple, and you're done. You know, figuring out where to put your soffit J on the edge of the building is actually quite simple. Just simply take a square and mark a line, and basically your soffit J is going to go parallel with the front of this fascia with the underside. So just simply mark it as we go along here, and then when you staple your J, put it on the underside of your the line you just made. Okay, so now that our soffits and our J's are all out of the way, it's now time to go on to the last step in the trimming process, and that's to get the fascia on. Now, the rule of thumb with the fascia, actually it sits with the J's and everything else as well, you always start at the lowest point and you go to the highest point, overlapping as you go. That way the water, you know, when it rains on the building and stuff like that, the water sheds off and away from the building rather than being drawn into it. Okay, you always overlap, and that way it sheds off. But if you were to put a piece inside, it would allow water into the building, but you don't want that. So you always start at your lowest point, which in this case is the side eaves. And once you've got the side eaves done, then we're going to work our way up to the peak on the ends of the building. Okay, our bottom of this one side is actually 5 feet. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually cut it at 5 foot 2 inches, and that'll give us a little bit of a wraparound. So we'll just quick little snip. foot too, and then what we're going to do, we'll take about an inch off each end here. And what we're going to do here is make a tab. Now, to make our tab, what we're going to do, we're going to simply cut this bottom part off, like so. Then I'm going to come in at a bit of an angle, snip that off, and we're going to snip that off. And that's what it looks like for now. We'll do the other end. Now, take our seaming tool. What we're going to do is just take this end here, line up the seaming tool. Up she goes, just like that. And the same thing on the other end. Just line up the seaming tool. There we go, and away we go. Now, that's going to fit right on our side of our shed there, just nicely. Okay, so now we take our piece and we just simply put it up against the edge here, and we just slide it up under the edge of the roof edge. Tension will just hold it in place there. Okay. Push it up till it's level. Now you want it to actually be level. You don't want it to be pushed up too tight. Now you want this to actually be level here. You don't want it to be pushed up too tight. You know, like that. That's too tight. So we want to just pull that down so that it's still nice and snug up here, but that's level on the bottom of the soffit there. Now with this level, we can just simply take a staple gun and put a couple staples in there, and that'll just hold that in place for now. Until we can get our screws in, and we've got some more pieces we got to put over the front of the face here, and that'll cover up these staples so we're never going to see them there. That'll just secure our piece in the meantime here. And we'll just put a couple in the other end as well. Okay, with the bottom piece of fascia in place, we can now start to work on the next piece of fascia, which overlaps this. This next one here is going to be a little bit of a tricky cut. It's kind of interesting to understand what's going on here with this one here. What we have to do is we have to put a short piece of fascia in and put a 90 and run it both directions here. And the reason for that is this is only going to take a 4-inch fascia, but this here is what, about 7 or 8 inches, I think, almost 7 inches. So a 4-inch fascia is not going to cover this area, so we have to cover this area first with a 6-inch fascia. And then we can go in and bring the 4-inch fascia over this. So we'll get our exact measurement here. We're 6 3/4 by 6 3/4. Okay. the square piece. Okay, so we've taken a piece of 6-inch fascia, and we've got 6 3/4, 6 3/4. We've got a cut in the middle, but we did not cut the spine. What we're simply going to do is we're going to take and we're going to bend, well, should actually take a pair of pliers and just crimp that right there first, and then that'll bend easy. There we go. We'll just take that and we'll, like so, and we'll just test fit it in here. We're going to have to trim this corner here, but that should, well, that looks like that's going to fit just fine actually. Okay. Good. You need to trim these corners here, and one thing you should also do, because this is going to be on the face underneath here, just cut that off at a 45 as well. There we go, and with those modifications made, that should just pop right into there. Voila, nice and tight. And we'll just tack it in place. There we go. That'll hold in place for now, and until we can get our 4-inch fascia in there. Now, one thing I should probably mention is that when you do your fold, make sure that you end up with your ribbing. If you have ribbing on your fascia, make sure it goes the same way on both sides. So otherwise it's going to look kind of odd if you have ribbing going this way on one side and then ribbing going up on the other side. So just when you make your cut, just remember to reverse the measurements on the other end, and that way when you do your bend, the ribbing will go in the same direction on both sides. Okay, now for our final piece of fascia, we need several different measurements. The first measurement we need is from the very underside of the roof on the bottom of the fascia, all the way to the very outer edge of the corner here, which in this case is 64 inches. Okay, so 64 inches right to this point right here. Okay, you just follow straight through a line at the bottom of your board here, right through to here, and that's 64 inches right to the roof line here. Okay, and just double check that always. Yeah, that's what we want. Okay, now we can do the cutting here later, but we need to do the cutting up at the top right away. So what we need to measure is right from here to this point here, and half an inch of overhang. So we're looking at 4 inches. Now we have an interesting predicament. Our fascia is 6 inches wide. We can get 4-inch fascia, but we have to order colored fascia by the box, and since I only need a couple of pieces, I'm just going to take a 6-inch piece and I'm going to cut it down. So what we're going to do, I've got it cut to length. Now I'm just going to run a line down here. With my square. Then we'll just trim that off. Okay, so now with that done, okay, we had to take 4 inches off the bottom, this end here. So what we need to do is just mark our 4 inches. There it is. We're actually going to do, this is a special little cut. We're going to go like so. Then we're going to take and go from the end here. We're going to go right up to our line. Now, this is where it gets fun. Because what we're going to do, we're going to cut off about 3/4 of an inch away. Then we're going to cut back like so. And we're going to make a little tab here, a little pointy tab. And we take the seamer and we just grab that little tab and bend it up at 90-degree angle. And that's going to catch the over the top when we put the other side in. And that's what that looks like up close. Okay, so what you do now is you just dry fit your piece in place, and you can see right here is where that is going to meet there. So just put a mark there, and that goes directly to this corner here. So we know that that's going to be 45 degrees at the back here, and you can just mark that off as well, because that and then we can pull this out. What we're going to do now is we're going to cut this portion off here, and we're just going to have this bit of facing here. So when you're done, it's going to look like this, and what we're going to do to finalize things, we're going to put some screws into the face and make it look pretty, and we're also going to secure the underside right about here. We'll put screws under as well to hold it in place. You only need a couple for a piece that size. About 3 screws will be fine, and then just a couple on the end here to secure it and make it look pretty, and that just closes everything off nicely. In the meantime, we can take our staple gun and just put one staple up at the very top, and that'll secure things while we work. Okay, so I put a staple in place here just to hold that temporarily. Friction is holding it the rest of the way. Now we are going to secure it with screws here afterward, and in the meantime we're just going to get our measurements for our other piece here. Now the measurements, assuming you built your roof square, the measurements should be the same, but because this is the finishing stage, just double check everything, just in case you're 1/8 or 1/4 inch out or something like that. You don't want to be short on this. You want it to line up perfectly. So we're just going to double check everything on this side and see where we should be. Again, if I go with 64, it looks like I'll be just fine. So we're going to cut another piece exactly the same as this one, except everything's going to be flip-flopped to go on the other side. And the one thing we're going to do differently at the top here, instead of running up into under this piece of undersill, what we're going to do, we're going to cut the piece at 45-degree angle right there. And that'll just give that piece a nice finished look. So anyways, that's about how it looks when you're finished. Just got some nice screws underneath here every couple of feet to just hold the fascia in place, and just some nice screws here on the facing up at the point there. Just well, look, arrange it in a decorative fashion so it looks decent, and you know, as well as it's functional as well. So but that's how you do your soffits and fascia and everything. And the next step, once you've got all that done, is to do your siding. And we'll do that in the next video. Have a good day. And just a little cost-saving tip for you. I like to do the front of a building if I can, if it's not too long of a run. I like to do it in a single piece. I think it just looks nicer. But if you need to do a longer run, you obviously have to make joints. Now, naturally, cutting longer pieces off, I'm going to be left with some pretty big chunks. And what you can do to save yourself some money is just on the back of the building, just simply overlap them and join them there. And that'll save you a couple bucks, one or two pieces on every job you do. Anyways, have a good day.